The Cleveland Browns hold two first-round picks in the 2026 NFL Draft. It's supposed to be a lot better quarterback-wise, a lot deeper, more top-end talent. The question is, what can Shadeur Sanders or Dillon Gabriel prove in 2025 to find a way for the Cleveland Browns to use those first-round picks at other positions? We'll talk about it. Browns 3D and the OBR starts now. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network. Start to close out another week here of Browns coverage at the OBR. Appreciate everybody who comes out for their written content every day from our fantastic group of writers. Everybody who comes out every evening and joins us here on the OBR streaming network, beginning every night, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Browns 3D, hosted by myself, your host, Jeff Lloyd. Today being Friday, you will have Things I Think I Know, hosted by Brad Ward, to close out the week. Any prominent Cleveland Browns news over the weekend, I'm sure we'll find a way to get some video and some written content up for you. Make sure you subscribe to the OBR on YouTube and make sure you're subscribed to the OBR, of course, over on Twitch. Now, obviously, looking ahead, all right, briefly, ahead, don't know all the players. There was a time you were 1 year before the draft and Joe Burrow was thought of as the third day prospect, and then all of a sudden went on to having a magnificent season with LSU. But the belief would be that the quarterback market will be richer in 2026 than it is in 2025. The Cleveland Browns, with two first round attempts to quench their quarterback thirst. My theory and my thought process here, though, is what can we see from a Shadeur Sanders or a Dillon Gabriel in 2025 that can convince the Cleveland Browns brass that one or the other can be the Browns' signal caller of the future? First, I've reached out for, some feedback in doing this. I reached out to a prominent NFL guy on what it would take from one of these guys on the field. Also, poking around through, various sources here with the Cleveland Browns, trying to get a feel about how it's going thus far for Shedeur and for Dillon Gabriel. Um, the early reports on both Shedeur and Dillon Gabriel are actually really positive. Um, and to be fair, it probably wasn't that hard of a situation to walk into for either one of these guys, knowing the quarterback situation that has gone on within the Browns locker room the last 3 years. So as long as these guys were coming in with the correct attitude, being positive, being respectful to their veteran elders, things were probably going to go smoothly, but they truly have to this point. Um, I did get a text message back from one player who spoke that he actually thought both guys really seemed, above your typical rookie quarterback. And it wasn't so much their success that they had in college, but it was coming in and kind of understanding the rookie way. And again, it's a respect thing. You walk in there, nobody gives a crap what you did in college. So, you don't come in, showing off your bowl rings. Nobody cares. You come on in and you be respectful to the guys who have, already established themselves in the league, the guys who have already proven themselves in the league. And for the reviews I've gotten, it seems that, both guys have come in extremely respectful, extremely kind, courteous, have gone out of their way to say hello to everyone, have gone out of their way to take the time to speak with everyone, get to know everyone. That's important. It is because, ego, in NFL locker rooms, it can become a serious problem quickly. Um, you know, one drafted in the third round, the other drafted in the fifth. So it's not like, either one of these guys is coming in here as a first round pick, you know, where ego should be something that's going on. It's just not to this point. From the same player, their dedication to this point has been fantastic. Both guys seem to be, really, really into, picking up the new system, learning a new system, embracing the opportunity to, expand, their repertoire, finding the way for them to find their niche within this offense, to find their way to establish relationships with the talent that is currently here. Certainly an upgrade in weapons for both of these guys as they go from college to the NFL. Um, and that's kind of what's been positive to this point is, the feedback and just the overall energy you're getting, from Shedeur, from Dillon Gabriel. And this has kind of really been the consensus on all of the rookie class to this point. We talked at length before the draft. We talked at length during our live stream of the draft. We've talked some of it surely after the draft. Was the Browns were trying to make an emphasis on finding guys who were good players, who were good people as well. And Dillon Gabriel seemed to have that stamp of approval during the draft process. For Shedeur, again, the whole thing just kind of, I want to say, maybe went off the road as far as the draft process was concerned. Again, I'm not going to Mel Kiper it, the way Mel did, but I definitely have issues with it. It's one thing to say, hey, I don't think he's, worthy of a top selection. It's another thing to, go the lengths that some went to try to just, tear the young man down. He is a talented player. I did, you guys listened enough. I had issues with some of Shadeur's tape, Shadeur's play, all things certainly that he can work on, improve upon, as he's transcending here from very, very good college quarterback to becoming hopefully a good NFL quarterback. So the NFL guy I reached out to and just said, and basically I pitched him the question of, what would you expect? What would you need to see if you're the Browns from Gabriel, from Sanders, that maybe is going to adjust your lens to other positional groups in the first round in the 2026 NFL draft? This particular guy brought up the name of Bo Nix from the Denver Broncos. Now, obviously, there was a little bit more expectation on Bo Nix, was drafted in the first round. So, with that, being said, you kind of get an idea and you look back here to, what Bo Nix did as a rookie. Most importantly, and most importantly for any team to have belief in a quarterback, in a guy that can maybe be their guy, is turnovers. It'll absolutely destroy you. Second one is completion percentage. Now, Bo Nix was completing passes at a 66% clip. That's outstanding for a rookie. That is very good. And look, we saw Bo Nix up close and personal from the Cleveland Browns standpoint. And obviously, you know, it wasn't just, dinks and dunks with Bo Nix. The ball was getting all over the field. Bo Nix was making all of his throws, basically throwing every route there was, so it's not like this number is inflated by a bunch of, underneath stuff. But 66, over 66% is very, very impressive. Touchdown to interception ratio, 29 to 12, 2-to-1 ratio plus. Not bad. 12, probably still a high number. 17 starts, though you figure it out over. Certainly a number I think that Denver would prefer, gets lower as the years go on. He threw for a little under 3,800 yards, passer rating of 93. This is one thing that, Bo Nix did that I'm not sure you're probably going to get the same from Shadeur Sanders or Dillon Gabriel, and that was 430 yards on the ground and 4 touchdowns. But that interception total, we know that's something that probably Shedeur can operate around that number. We know Dillon Gabriel, that is a number he can probably operate around. But that is a huge, huge number and way to go. I'm sorry, huge statistic, obviously. And as far as, whether or not you know, the belief is in you. You may not throw a lot for the Cleveland Browns for Shedeur or Gabriel in whatever opportunities they get here in 2025. The Browns looking to lean a little bit more on the running game, hence the second round selection of Quinshon Judkins. Hence the fourth round selection of Dillon Sampson. We've all heard all off season about changing the system back to what worked previously in seasons 20, 21, 22, and 23. As far as the run game, the offensive linemen are more comfortable into it. It's actually a situation. It's actually a system that probably favors any running back. It just truly does because basically you're just going to ride out, the hip of your pulling guards and just find your daylight and take it and go. So whether it's Judkins, whether it's Sampson, still Jerome Ford, a fixture and all of that, that's, probably going to benefit and help everybody kind of eat, which is going to assist whatever quarterback ends up playing for the Cleveland Browns, a ton. But that interception number, that is big. You've got to be under one a game. Ideally, you'd like to be in single digits for the season. Um, that would be something that would certainly enhance the possibility of the Browns looking at one of these guys and believing that they are the long-term option. It's definitely a tricky situation for the Browns because certainly it appears, and I don't know why it wouldn't, that Dillon Gabriel was the more valued commodity of the two, drafted higher. Shadeur's slide continued, and the Browns decided to get back into that game and then go ahead and add Shedeur. You know, Dillon Gabriel, obviously, lacking a little bit of overall size. I don't know that necessarily is going to, you know, hurt him. He's been the same size he was in his entire collegiate career. Certainly found a way to be, wildly successful. Um, Shedeur, definitely a little bit more of the true traditional NFL build. Um, I would say both have good enough arm strength, but if I'm giving the arm strength nod, I think I'm giving it to Dillon Gabriel. Um, and there are some things I think with Shedeur that can probably be cleaned up, tightened up. It could create a little bit more velocity. Shedeur, in my opinion, has a little bit more of is a little bit more of a longer thrower. If you want the example, say outfielder maybe versus infielder, like those type of throwers. If you can get, Shedeur to be a little bit more quicker and compact and shorter, there certainly would be, a velocity increase. Just makes sense. I mean, as they say, physics, I guess, right? Both wildly good intangibles. I think both are very, very overall just intelligent football players. They get the game, they get everything that's going on around them. As a quarterback, it's crazy to think that you have to worry about everything you have to worry about. And then at the same time, also worry about what other 21 guys on the field are doing, whether it's offense, whether it's defense as well. It's just, it's the reason it is the moneymaker position in all of sports. It is the reason it pays as handsomely as it does. It's just not that easy. It takes a lot to be just a decent quarterback in the NFL, let alone a great quarterback in the NFL. I guess it'll be about a week from next Wednesday, when we start to get to see more. And then that's when we're going to get to see the rookies, blended in with the veterans. We'll get to see some Shedeur and Dillon Gabriel tosses to David Njoku. And of course, to, the Jerry Judys of the world and the Deontay Johnsons and the Cedric Tillmans. And it's going to be tough, obviously, for the roster itself because, nobody wants to play favorites, but it's going to be talked about. you know, guys are going to say, "Oh, well, or I mean, it's just the way it goes." And as much as this is a probably a great situation for Cleveland, where you have these two young guys, and you're going to get to see what's up and what's the best from both of them. It is certainly a difficult spot, for Shedeur, for Dillon Gabriel as teammates, basically in the same role and trying to compete for the ultimate same prestigious goal, starting quarterback in the NFL. Now, while they may not directly hand in hand help each other, assist each other, watching each other's reps, watching each other's tapes, I made the mistake on this play. He didn't. Let me see how he saw it. Let me try to replicate it from his standpoint, which is certainly going to be fascinating. Um, I think both of them are going to get a lion's share of work. I think that everybody who has questions about, how much work they're going to get, I think you're misguiding yourself. I really do. Because I do believe that both guys have the ability with the Browns here to get a ton of reps, to get a ton of work. Because I'm not sure there truly is a competition between Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco. I think the Browns, deep down, have an idea how they want that to shake out. We don't know it, but they do. Flacco at 40 and a half is just not going to be a guy that's going to have to get a heavy workload. It would be foolish to give him a heavy workload at 40 and a half years old, especially if you're intending on him to be your starter, which we do or do not know. You get back to what I talked about earlier as far as, that turnover number. And that is one thing where now I may not be as high on handing the offense week one to Joe Flacco as I have been probably in the last couple of weeks. Joe is a guy that turns the ball over a lot. And the Browns just cannot have that. I think it was 73 turnovers over the last two seasons, which is an absolutely bananas number. It is an unmanageable number. It is an absolute recipe for disaster. You turn the ball over at that rate, you essentially have to play flawless in every other aspect of the game. The run game, defensively, special teams. You have to be absolutely perfect. So that is probably one thing where I'm probably changing my opinion a little bit on the slam dunk that I was thinking that Joe Flacco might be to be your week one quarterback. Kenny has had turnover issues. It's kind of hard to really gauge where Kenny is at this point in his career. Barely played last year. Didn't play the last, I guess, half or third of 2023. And this is one thing where the kids have a pretty good ability, is not turning the ball over. So, whether it's, OTAs, whether it is mandatory minicamp, whether it is actually training camp, whether it is preseason games, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for Shedeur and Dillon. I wouldn't be surprised preseason wise. Each one of these guys probably gets the opportunity to maybe throw 100 passes in 3 games. I mean, I'm not even sure. I mean, I know I wouldn't play Joe Flacco in a preseason game. I'm not even sure I would play Kenny Pickett, which would mean these two could conceivably get, you know, 3 halves, 6 quarters with the 3 preseason games the Browns have. And if these guys show the ability to, you know, climb the ladder through each phase, OTAs again, mandatory minicamp, training camp, preseason, if they continue to stack together positives and start making that climb maybe sooner than people were expecting, as far as, the question of ready or not, puts you in a weird position come week one. It really does. You know, I've talked and I've said a million times that these guys are different, and I don't know necessarily what sitting either one would do. The track records speak for themselves. The amount of time they've played speaks for itself. I'm not sure, if you're concerned with Dillon Gabriel is that he's under 6 feet tall. Well, sitting is not going to change that. If you're concerned with Shadeur Sanders, which was one of mine, is he going to be athletic enough to be able to avoid NFL pass rush? Well, sitting and watching ain't going to change your thought on whether or not you now think Shedeur Sanders is athletic enough to avoid sacks and pressures in the NFL. It's going to be fun. It really is. And I think at the end of the day, what you would need to see from Sanders and Gabriel, and again, I think they're both going to get their opportunities. I think what you're looking at is a completion percentage number of 65%. Touchdown to interception ratio, you're looking for that 2-to-1. All right. They throw 10 touchdown passes, no more than 5 picks. Amount of interceptions per attempts, all of these things. And to be fair, whatever these guys could do in 2025, there could still be an opportunity where the Browns say, sorry, we're still drafting a quarterback with one of these 2 first-round picks in 2026. It would be good business. It would be smart, analytic business. Get as many as you have. The Browns could turn themselves from a quarterback room that everybody kind of looked at, made jokes at, to all of a sudden next year having a quarterback room of a first round pick that can be as high as top 10, if not top 5 or higher. A 25-year-old who maybe has some success in his rookie year, and a 24-year-old who found some success his rookie year. Quarterbacks like gold. It's a commodity, can always move. So certainly something that can work out in that regard for the Cleveland Browns. Do we think Shedeur's got a legit shot? I would not bet against him. I would not. That Sanders bloodline, man. And if he's even got half the dog in him that his old man had, it's hard to believe that Shedeur Sanders cannot be successful in the National Football League. He's coming off very humble. He's coming off as an excitable kid. Certainly his short time in the city to this point, and basically killing the narrative that people were trying to put on him during the draft process. It seems like a fun kid. He seems like he's very willing in giving of his time. The one thing we were told during the process about Hunter, talking about Travis Hunter, of course, and Shedeur Sanders is that these guys, their life is ball. This is what they do. They have little, they talk, they like to, they discuss, they podcast, they like to talk about, life, music, sports. But his drive, Shedeur, and his determination to be successful at his craft is not something that's going to be questioned. It's just not. And, as I've said a couple of times now since, 3 weeks ago when this, all went down and he was drafted, is we're starting to learn and see, that him standing on his own 2 feet And, now moving on, from his time with his dad in Colorado and, of course, Jackson State prior to that, there's something that Shedeur looks like he's trying becoming to embrace. He comes here to Cleveland. There are other cities would have been tough. Atlanta would have been tough to go play for. San Francisco, of course, Dallas, anywhere where his father had played would have been a little tougher. He comes to Cleveland and, you know, he's the Sanders in Cleveland. It's not like he went to a city where his dad played. He's coming here and, he is Shadeur Sanders and he is a Cleveland Brown. It's going to be damn fun to watch. It really is. Because I think between Sanders and Gabriel, both of these guys just have it. And the personality, the work ethic, I think both of them have it to be successful in this league. And it's not necessarily the thing that's going to get you over the hump in the NFL. Can these guys and the talents they have find a way to make it work in the National Football League? It's certainly going to be fun to watch. A little noise around the name Chris Olave, and maybe Pittsburgh having some interest. Loved Chris Olave coming out of Ohio State. Absolutely loved him. God, please don't send him to Pittsburgh. So many Browns fans would just now have to hate him. If he's available, I'm interested. I'm not going to lie. I am concerned that maybe Derek Carr got him killed too many times, and certainly have my concerns about his health. Not exactly sure what the cost would be for a Chris Olave. Obviously, anything the Steelers were offering, the Browns could beat if they wanted to. You're telling me Chris Olave is available? Well, hot damn. Yes, I'm interested, and I am very interested. So we'll see if that's something the Saints are really entertaining, or this again, somebody from Pittsburgh just trying to drum up some clicks in May. Certainly wouldn't be the first time. Certainly wouldn't be the last time with some of the crew over there covering the Pittsburgh Steelers. But a guy like Chris Olave becoming available, yeah, it's something I'm absolutely all in on. Harold Fannin has agreed to terms on his rookie deal. 4 years. I think it's almost like $6.3 million for Fannin. Of course, the Canton native, still only 20 years old. Getting to play for, getting to play for the team closest to where he grew up. I saw somebody refer to him the other day as, oh, I hate that he went there because he's a backup. I don't think they understand just how much 12 personnel is loved by Coach Kevin Stefanski, or just how much 12 personnel is played by Coach Kevin Stefanski. Fannin's going to be fun. Fannin should be a pretty integral piece of this team. And again, it may not happen as a rookie. It's one of the more difficult transitions positionally in the NFL, is going from college tight end to NFL tight end. Brock Bowers ain't the norm, kids. He's just not. But we're all going to really, really enjoy Fannin. And again, it'll be second year in a row. The Browns get a kid who looks to be a really nice, solid football player with local ties. Mike Hall last year, Fannin this year. And those stories obviously become, big parts of training camp, and easily become players that, you Browns fans just absolutely want to, basically go to war for and cheer for and battle for. Another great productive week here at the OBR. Plenty of shows, of course. The live stream covering the schedule released the other night. Thanks to everybody who came out for that. Always a good time when we get the whole crew together. I've already actually started talks. I think we would like to maybe try to find one night where we can kind of do maybe a 3-4 guy show and just bounce off some of the latest Brown topics. Certainly have, you listeners be a little more interactive with us. something we're certainly looking to do. We appreciate everybody that comes out every day and reads the written content from the great group of writers here at the OBR. All the support that we get is absolutely fantastic, and we truly appreciate it. Everybody who comes out every night for the OBR streaming network, beginning 6 o'clock Monday through Friday with me, Jeff Lloyd, hosting Brown's 3D. Various shows come after during the week. Friday, today, Brad Ward, Things I Think I Know. So make sure you stick around for that as well. And again, we just, of course, could not be more thankful to all the wonderful people here and their support of the Orange and Brown Report. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. Browns 3D on the OBR. And everybody, have a great weekend.